Birmingham Airport, about to depart for the flight to Frankfurt. In 2018, one of my friends who also loves to travel wanted to arrange a trip with myself. So we had weighed up some options, and the place that ticked all the correct boxes was Egypt, due to the vast amount of history, the culture and the great food. Our journey started at Birmingham Airport, where we took a flight to Frankfurt, where we had a transit on Lufthansa Airlines. And one of the things we noticed was that the Frankfurt airport was full of Lufthansa airplanes. And that's mainly because Lufthansa is Germany's largest airline and one of the largest airlines in the world. And the airport was very impressive, staff were really friendly and helpful, and it wasn't long until we took our ongoing flight onto Cairo Airport. After a few hours we arrived in Cairo and we had another connected flight, and this time it was on to the south of Egypt to Aswan Airport. We only had a week in Egypt and we wanted to see as much as possible. So after some research, we found a unique way of conquering all our goals and to see as much as possible. And this was by taking a cruise up the River Nile. For the Nile cruise experience, we used a company called Memphis Tours, who arranged to pick us up from Aswan Airport. It was early hours, but it was daylight, and they picked us up in a van and they took us to the cruise ship, which was docked on the River Nile. Once we had arrived to the cruise ship, I was really surprised to find that so many cruise ships could fit on the River Nile at the same time. I didn't realize how wide the River Nile actually was. After a short break of putting our bags down, we were on the road and we were going on to our first excursion. The first place we went to see was the granite quarries, and this is where the stones were all dug out from the ground and carved and transported up the River Nile to the various sites across Egypt.
High Dam. And the High Dam, this is the biggest building in Egypt. That's one here started building in 1960, finished in 1971.
Visited the High Dam, which is a dam that controls the flow of water passing through the River Nile from Sudan up through Egypt and out into the Mediterranean Sea. By this time the heat started getting to us, as it was extremely hot in May in Egypt, and we were on our way to next part of the day, which was going to visit the Temple of Philae. To reach the island we had to catch a small boat which was organised by Memphis Tours for our group, and it was just a short little ride until we had reached the island. We found it extremely fascinating because it was our first exposure of ancient Egypt, and we got to see so many artifacts and original preserved sites. And what also was fascinating was that there was still so much of the pieces of ancient Egypt just scattered around the place and not being brought back together. There was monuments and walls and bricks scattered all over the place, waiting to be preserved and put back together at a later date.
It's the first one, isn't it? You know, after like a few of them, then we might start getting bored, isn't it? All this is quickly. Yeah, funny, yeah. These are for everything. Especially if it wasn't here in the first place.
On the way back to the cruise ship, we were taken to a glassmaking factory. Although it kind of seemed like it was sales orientated, there was literally no pressure. So if you didn't want to buy anything, there was no hassle or no ill feeling. It was quite interesting to see some of the techniques used to make glass ornaments and glass furniture. On the evening we had a few hours spare before dinner, and the cruise ship had arranged a Nubian folklore show. It was something that we didn't really want to participate in, so we went on our own little adventure just to experience Aswan city. So we took a horse and carriage ride around the city. We went to a local mosque. We returned before having our dinner and ending the night.
See where the proper market is, eh? Hussein. Oh, Sufi, the horse.
Oh, your name is horse. Maybe later they will show the big market.
The next morning we had woken up to the beautiful sight of our cruise ship travelling up the river Nile. The day had started really early and we were on the way to our first excursion of the day. The place where our cruise ship had settled was a place called Kom Ombo, where a temple resided. There was some mummies of crocodiles and some other animals which were part of a small museum on site, and it was very interesting seeing how that this temple was slightly different to that temple of the Temple of Philae. We spent a few hours here and we had explored and we heard about some of the history behind this temple before returning back onto the cruise ship. We had some lunch on the cruise ship, which was all included within the price that we had paid. And following this, we had some spare time until our cruise ship had reached the next destination of Edfu, which was further up the Nile. So we enjoyed this time on top of the cruise ship, on the top deck of the cruise ship, where there were sunbeds, chairs, seats, and even a paddle pool. I wanted to give you a quick tour of our room to show you what a room looks like on board of a cruise ship. So this room, which was part of a 5-star cruise ship, the price of the cruise ship was around about £475 per person, and that was for the 3 days that we were on board the cruise ship. It included all the excursions as well as all the meals, which included breakfast, lunch and dinner. And I believe it was great value for money because we didn't have to arrange any further accommodation and any further meals. Once we had reached Edfu, it was arranged for us all to go by horse and carriage to the temples in Edfu.
Oh, the Gora's in it. He's in the front, the Gora's riding it.
In Edfu, we had explored the Horus Temple before returning to the cruise ship and having some rest for the rest of the night. We spent the rest of the evening on top of the cruise ship, enjoying the sunset and enjoying some of the Nile views, whilst the cruise ship continued up the river Nile up towards Luxor. In Luxor, we woke up to some beautiful sights of air balloons, and this is one of the great spectacles that they have in Luxor. Our day started early yet again, and this time we made our way to the famous Valley of the Kings. This is where we got to see some of the tombs of some of the pharaohs and where they were buried. And this place was excavated only a couple of hundred years ago, where they had discovered the mummies of various pharaohs, and it is believed that there are still many yet to be undiscovered. The next part of the journey was to my favourite site, the site that I found the most extravagant. It was the temple of Queen Hatshepsut.
Yeah, this Philistine, this is right.
On the afternoon, we had a few hours spare. Whilst most people decided to have lunch on board the cruise ship, we decided to try some local cuisine, where we managed to taste camel for the very first time, and it was very nice. It was our last evening with the cruise, so they decided to fit in some further activities. So they had taken us to the Karnak Temple and the Temple of Luxor. So it was a very busy day.
But this one, okay. Here we have that's fine. This is we can call it cow.
In the evening, we decided to eat out to try some local street food, and it was a great way to end our trip on the Nile cruise. The following morning, we had taken a short flight from Luxor of back to Cairo, where we met a friend of mine who I had met a year earlier in Saudi Arabia. He had invited us to his local village. When he told me about his village, it was not as I had expected. I expected it to be very small, ground level houses, but when we had arrived, I was quite pleasantly surprised that everything was really well built. I got to experience something that I've always wanted to do, which was to go on top of a minaret. So my friend Khalid, he had arranged to get the keys for the local masjid, and we managed to go to the very top, where we experienced some amazing views. The next day we went to visit the Al-Azhar University, which is one of the most famous universities in the world, and especially in the Islamic world. Although we didn't get much recording done, we had a nice day out and explored the areas surrounding it. The next day we decided to go to the Cairo Museum, and they had so many artifacts from different eras, and we was just overwhelmed by the amount of history that was present on show. And one of the things to bear in mind is that there is no restaurant or anywhere to eat on site, so you may be there for a good few hours. It might be a wise thing to eat before you go. After our visit to Cairo Museum, we had gone to the Cairo Tower. We had queued up for hours, and although the views were spectacular, I feel as if we wasted a lot of time in queuing, and we could have better utilized the time elsewhere. We had a short bite to eat, and then following this we went to a masjid, and it wasn't any old masjid, it was the first ever masjid inside Egypt. It was a masjid built by one of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, named Amr ibn al-As.
This stuff I read a long time ago. You know,
That evening we had decided to stay in Giza because the following day was our last day in Egypt and we really needed to see the pyramids. It is advised to book a accommodation prior to your arrival because we really struggled to find a room. When we got to see the pyramids for the first time, they were absolutely breathtaking. The size of them was spectacular, and words can't really describe the magnitude of the pyramids. Each brick lays really tall, up to around chest height, and not just like little steps, and each precisely placed in orderly fashion to make the shape of the pyramid. We had walked around for a good few hours taking it all in, and then there are many people who are offering horse rides, camel rides and various other types of attractions. We decided to take up an offer of a horse ride, and honestly for a few pounds it was definitely worth the money. We got to experience them in much quicker time and in a unique way as well. And that rounded up our trip to Egypt.
Right.
This video was never intended to be released onto YouTube, as I had only made short clips of our time there just for personal use and personal memories. But after I made a compilation previously and I had showed it to some friends and family and they really enjoyed it. This is what really inspired me to make a travel YouTube channel, because I've always had a passion for travel as well as filmmaking and video editing, and my friends and family really enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed the video, I really would appreciate if you hit the thumbs up, and if you want to see any further content then please subscribe. And I do appreciate all comments that are made into the comment section, so please get involved. But for now, goodbye and peace.